Hello everybody. Today what we're going to be working on is learning how to factor. Okay. Make sure you have your journal out. Make sure you write as many of these steps down as you possibly can to make sure you understand what it's asking for. What is factoring when you are dealing with what's called a binomial? We're going to talk about that. Just remember, factors are numbers when multiplied together equal a certain product. So we have a certain product right here that is x squared minus 18x plus 81. Now, when you're trying to fact, this is called, this right here, this whole thing right here is called a trinomial. I'm going to write it down. Alright. Maybe I better type it. Let's go ahead. Let's type that. Yeah, be better. Alright. This is a trinomial. There we go. Alright, so that trinomial can be broken down into two binomials as two binomial factors. Alright, so we're going to have a binomial multiplied to another binomial. And so how do you do this? Well, it's very important. There's a cool little trick. If there is a 1 in front of the x squared, this is what you can do. And I'm going to highlight two very important constants. We have a constant right here, all right, this negative 18, and we have this one right here at the end. We have a coefficient negative 18, and then the constant at the end, which is 81. And those are going to be very important numbers when we're trying to figure out how to factor this. This is a pretty easy one. Hopefully they'll be a little bit more difficult, but we're going to go ahead and start with the easy one. What you're doing is you're looking for two numbers that add up to equal negative 18. And those exact two numbers multiply together to equal 81. So that's the first thing you want to learn how to do, because you kind of want to think about your factors. So where do you start? Always start with the factors of 81. Now there's multiple factors of 81. There's 81 times 1. Most of you probably thought, hey, there's 9 times 9, all right? And there's also 27 times 3, all right? But we're going to use 9 and 9. Now, if I put a 9 here and a 9 here, 9 times 9 is 81, but 9 plus 9 is not negative 18. So this is where you have to kind of think about what you would have to do in order to make this work. We actually have to make these negative. So a negative 9 plus a negative 9 equals a negative 18, and a negative 9 times a negative 9 equals a positive 81. Well, let me show you how we're going to use these. Very, very simple. We're just going to say x minus 9 times x minus 9, and these right here are considered to be the factors of this trinomial. So if we rewrite it as this, if we write it as x minus 9 times x minus 9 equals 0, ask yourself, what number would you have to plug in right here to make it equal to 0? Well, there's only one number that'll work, a positive 9. And I'm going to write x equals 9 as my answer. So we ended up with two factors. One of our factors was x minus 9. The other factor was x minus 9. And they multiply together to equal this. All right? What number minus 9 equals 0? A positive 9. So, our first answer, we're just going to type in 9. All right, let's take a look at this one. Now this one has a smaller x and a larger x. All right, so right now, go ahead and write down x squared minus 12x plus 27 equals 0. We are going to look, once again, for numbers that add up to equal negative 12, but those exact same numbers multiply together to equal a positive 27. When the middle coefficient, all right, is negative and the last is positive, you know you're going to be dealing with two negatives, just like we did before. We had a negative and a positive, and our factors were both negative. All right, so when you're having to factor, that's a kind of a clue. So right now, let's go ahead and set it up. We're looking for two numbers that add together to equal negative 12, but those exact same two numbers, when you multiply them together, equal a positive 27. So once again, where do we start? We start with factors. The factors of 27. Well, the factors of 27 are simply 27 and 1 and 3 times 9, and that's it. Now, if you ever get stuck and you're not sure how to find your factors, like you're not good with your multiplication tables, and you want to kind of find a quick way to find your factors, what you could do, all right, is you could go to Desmos if you want, all right, and you could type in, say 27 divided by x, and then make a table, and you could just start typing in numbers, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the only numbers that are factors are numbers that are actually integers, like this 3 and 9 and 1 and 27. You'll notice all the others have decimals, so those aren't considered to be integer factors. So just 3 times 9 and 1 times 27. Those are the only ones that will work. So once again, how do you do that? Just type in whatever the number is, divide it by x, and just search for numbers like these, which are integers. And those are the only ones that are actually factors. Alright? Alright, let's go back. So now that we have our list of factors, the only one that can get us to where we need to go is this 3 and 9. I'm going to put a 3 and a 9. I'm going to put a 3 and a 9. But once again, these both have to be negative. Because a negative 3 plus a negative 9 is negative 12, and negative 3 times negative 9 is positive 27. So once again, we are going to factor this. We're going to say x minus 3 and x minus 9 equals 0. And now we can pretty much easily figure out what we're looking for. Like, what number minus 3 is 0? Well, that number is a 3. What number minus 9 is 0? That number is a 9. So our smaller 0 is a 3 and our larger is a 9. Now, if you're ever wondering if you actually got the correct factors, you could use the FOIL method to make sure that you got it correct. So the FOIL method, once again, do your first products. I'm going to call that f. Our first product is x times x. That's x squared. Then we do our outer products. Our outer products is x times negative 9, which is negative 9x. Then we'll move over here to our inner products. That's our I. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And then finally our last products, which is a negative 3 times a negative 9, which is a positive 27. And when you add all the like terms together, you get x squared minus 12x plus 27. And there's your answer. Alright, so it kind of gets us back to where we started. Right now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to type in our two answers. Our smaller value is a 3, and our larger value is a 9. Alright, let's do two more, and then we'll call this video done. Alright? X squared minus 5x minus 14. This one's a little bit different. Now we have a negative and another negative. Now whenever you have a negative and another negative, you know one of your answers is going to be positive and the other one is going to be negative. Alright, so I'm going to set it up the exact same way that we did before. Alright, we're looking for two numbers that add together to equal a negative 5, and those exact same two numbers multiply together to equal a negative 14. Alright, so two numbers that add together to equal a negative 5, and they multiply together to equal a negative 14. So once again, what do we need to look for? We need to look for our factors. Well, the factors of 14 are 14 times 1 and 7 times 2. We're going to use 7 and 2 because those are the only ones that can get us to a 5. So I'm going to put a 7 and a 2 and a 7 and a 2. But now we got to figure out, wait, how do we get to a negative 5? And how do we get to a negative 14? Well, one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. But which one? Well, if we have a negative 5, we know our 7 has to be negative because you got to have more negatives than you do positives in order to create a negative 5. So we just found our factors. We're going to put x minus 7 and x plus 2. And all you have to do to check it, all right, is just look at your numbers. Is negative 7 plus 2 negative 5? And is negative 7 times 2 negative 14? If that works, you know you got it correct. So let's figure out our two numbers. What number minus 7 is 0? 7. What number plus 2 is 0? Negative 2, which is our smaller x. Negative 2, which is our larger? Positive 7. And you're done. All right, one more. This one's probably the easiest. We have positive and positive. If all you see is positive, then you know our two factors are going to be positive. But this is only asking for one answer because it ends up only becoming one answer. All right, this is going to be a pretty easy one. You probably already know the answer. If you're looking for two numbers that add up together to equal 12, but those exact same two numbers multiply together to equal 36. Well, there's lots of factors of 36. There's 36 times 1. There's 18 times 2. There's 9 times 4. And there's 6 times 6. Well, there's only one set that will work in both scenarios. And that, of course, is 6 and 6. Because 6 plus 6 is 12, and 6 times 6 is 36, which allows us to easily factor this to x plus 6 times x plus 6. Well, there's only one number that you can plug in there to make this equal to 0, and that answer is a negative 6. And that's why I'm going to put negative 6. All right, so just a quick review. All you have to do is you got to find two numbers that add up together to equal the middle coefficient and the two numbers that multiply together to equal the constant at the end. And then write out your factors and find the number that you'd have to plug in for x to make your expression equal to 0. And that's all you have to do. Hope this was helpful and you're able to get a nice, easy 100. Have a good day.